And your life is going to change. You are going to be different. My name is and your life is going to change. You are going to be different. My name is and your life is going to change. You are going to be different. You are going to be out. You are going to be bigger and larger than ever. That is impossible. And you know why? Because it's true and I will find the power that's been dormant inside of you all of this time. And all of this time you will pray to go out and no longer will that be the case. You will be shout. You will be the God or goddess of you will be the one that everybody looks you and says, hey, look, they're there. The master's there. The teacher there. There's the one that will make my life different. And would I can do that? Remember to try to tell you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to change your life. Your life will no longer be the same. Be together. I'm going to accomplish it. Before you know it, everything you imagine possible will become possible for one simple reason. Everything is possible. My name is and your life is going to change. You are going to be there to be there to be there. My name is and your life is going to change. You are going to be there to be there to be there.
And welcome to another program of Uncommon Sense. We're here this evening to prepare you for Friday's program. And Friday's program is all about education. Just to give you a little bit of a note, what's going to happen here? Hang on just a second. Facebook has all these interesting interruptions. And I had a conversation earlier. And so if you hear the question over there, can you hear me? That was about 20 minutes ago. Someone had written in and figured out that the link for this program is always the same on YouTube. So Zoja, who will come back later, and he says he records everything and plays it later. And so it's very good. And Rina Tay says, hi, Dr. Gil, sudah makan, which in Malay means, have you eaten? And she's eating instant noodles. Thank you for telling us that. We needed to know. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about education, because on Friday we'll have a very special guest, Lucia from Brazil, who's going to talk to us about the 7 laws of teaching, which will be very useful, not just for people who are teaching at the elementary school level or secondary school level, high school level, or any form of teacher. Even a spiritual teacher needs to learn some of what these spiritual laws are to be able to communicate with children, and to be able to communicate with your audience, and whether or not they're children, but also the audience who you are, students that you want to connect with, and to bring them from a place where they do not know what they're supposed to know, and then teach them how to become more competent in the skills that they need to be able to deal with everything that life throws at them. So we'll work on that as well. But for now, let's address some things that teachers need to know. Chris, welcome again. Nice to for you to join us. Ayusakorn from, you see, I cannot say Ayusakorn. I have to say, this is Dr. O, who's one of my students from, 2010, 2011? Can't remember how much further that was. And she has a name that is part of a song, but she has never heard the song. Jimmy Chuckhorn and I don't care, da 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 da, and then it's Ayusakorn and I don't care. So anyway, neither here nor there. So how do we engage people? Well, there are several ways that I teach people to do this, but yet let me talk about what is current, the COVID situation. Because you still, teachers, even though they have, this is not a program on teaching how to teach, on pedagogy and all of those, although suggestology and suggestopedia will be taught on Friday. in this program on common sense. And but I do want to touch on socio-economic, socio-emotional needs that students have, especially when you are now going online. For many of our students, when you think about them, time away from school is not at all a vacation. You have to understand that they miss the structure and the routine of the traditional school day, as well as seeing their friends and teachers regularly, the socialization process. We know that not every student has a positive home life, and some indeed comes from broken homes. But unfortunately, school may be the one place that they feel safe and cared for. Now, because of COVID, that has taken an abrupt turn, because this abrupt cancellation of school, a switch to online learning, may not only be difficult to manage academically for a lot of people, but can also be a challenge for students' social and emotional needs. So art has always helped. Art has this unique capability of allowing students an opportunity to express themselves creatively. And as maybe an art teacher or incorporating art into the work, you can develop lessons that encourage self-expression and ask them to think about their own feelings and their experiences as they produce drawings, or as they produce artwork, or colored responses, maps, and such like to what it is you are teaching. Now, there are three ways to address social emotional needs through online learning. One could be maybe some illustrations of gratitude that people might have. Students may find themselves experiencing very high anxiety, depression, and fear because they're far away from school. And these constant figures and routines are no longer there to support the students, and it may be a very difficult transition. So some students may actually find themselves at home alone for long periods of time without any support or human interaction at all. And so this leaves them with a lot of time to themselves, with little to do but start thinking and mulling over their already very anxious thoughts. Say, for instance, if they were thinking something about the prom coming up, or the stress they're feeling from a poor work attitude when it comes to online schools, or sometimes they're up till 1 a.m. in the morning stressing and not being able to sleep. Climate change, small little thing like that, but you'd be surprised. New assignments that they haven't posted yet, or things like that. Maybe even some attitude in terms of less screen time and more letting their eyes go out into something else and paying attention to something else, or even deadlines and so on and so forth. So you see, you have to know, we know that creating art can have positive effects on your own attitude and emotional state. I know I do. When I'm stressed out, I take a canvas and I express myself on that canvas. How much have I made so far from selling my art? Not much. I was very pleased when it sold for like $5,000, but I think that was because of the name and the reputation that I had more than anything else. So when you assign a project to students online, you must engage their minds in creative thinking. You're giving them an opportunity to switch into their imagination, into their problem solving, into their producing modes, when they start to create something new that wasn't there before. And one project that can engage a student and lift their spirits, maybe to ask them to identify things in their life that they might be grateful for. And when they start writing it and putting it next to them, and you refer to it as often as you can as a teacher, then you will learn how to better become a teacher with teaching them this idea. And Friday, we're going to talk about suggestopedic teaching. So at that point, you can learn the different list, different music components that they can play and listen to while they're doing that. And this gratitude list or items should somehow all belong in the same maybe scene, where you are doing something. Maybe encourage students to create a unified final illustration of everything they have to do. Things like they're grateful for their health, they're grateful for their homework, they're grateful for being able to still communicate with friends and family through Zoom and other means. Um, they're grateful for their dog. They're grateful to have food to eat. To create unity, you have to make some suggestions and make that part of what everybody is trying to do as well. Let me welcome some other people here. Peter Zornig, welcome. Iling Lam, welcome. And my mother, welcome, Mamji. So we were talking about students and how to keep students engaged, even though they're on online learning. Sometimes turning in their completed assignments, somewhere along the way, students maybe should send an illustration along with their gratitude list or something like that, or maybe some of the symbols that might be obvious and some further explanation or an identification of those symbols, and they'll explain to their classmates and to the teacher, exactly what to do. And so that would be very important to you as well. It's an opportunity for your student or students to take an inventory of what's important to them in their life. And this way, since they're broadcasting from home and from the home environment to the teacher, wherever the teacher is in their home, the students can then talk about what's happening in their life. And while this activity does not change any conflicts or issues that they're struggling with at home or otherwise, at least they would feel that influence of the teacher has somehow reached into their very homes. Just for you to pay attention to that, because it can help students identify and appreciate all the good that is still around them and in their own homes, in their own environments, and not only using school as a safety, because a lot of students need school to get away from the home. And so it becomes very difficult. So reflection, commentary, artists all over the world are always reflecting on their own experiences and right now and paying attention to what they want to bring up, And this is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening for hundreds of years. The fact that we are all experiencing a global pandemic is unique, you see, because you can pull examples from the street artists, the illustrators, and the other favorite creators that you find online to share with students as well. So artists create a lot of commentaries on what's going on in the world around them, and some artists would have a peculiar point of view or social approach or political approach is quite different. And so it makes what they experience or their reflection of what they're experiencing or the world is experiencing that much more personal. So you start to pay attention to that as well. So there are many projects out there. You can always go in and look online in Google. Google is your best friend now to be able to help you with all of that. What we're all missing from this switch to online learning is personal interaction, socialization. As educators, we know that the best way to become an effective teacher is to develop and build positive relationships with our students. So we do this by interacting with them in the classroom, by learning their interests, listening to their questions, their stories, their ideas, and online learning threw us all off, And at first we may have been too focused on the content and how we would, deliver the material. Now we need to shift our focus to include how we interact with students as well. If all we're doing is posting assignments and instructions and due dates, then we've lost the personal connections. So we are more than, we are more than just words on a page or a screen. So take time to offer opportunities to meet with your students virtually, using online tools like Zoom or sometimes students miss seeing and hearing from you, the actual you in person. And so take time away from the classroom to be able to make this happen. Maybe some ideas for virtual interaction could be a casual chat and answer any questions they might have, personal questions, or show off examples of student work, in the week in a slide presentation for the whole class to see. Class, yeah, Thomas created all of this today. I want you to see this, and then people will do that, or play a game with everybody, like Pictionary. This online format makes it all very, very easy and fun. Or maybe do a simple art making demonstration, and don't just do it yourself. Ask the entire class for their input. What would you put here? What shall I do here? And then it becomes a joint project, even though you're online. And then make specific comments and feedback about their work as they're putting it together and recreating what you're doing at the head of the class or at the head of the Zoom class. So pay attention that online learning doesn't just have to be about how we deliver our content. We can provide opportunities beyond the normal classroom objectives that we have, education objectives that we have. Art is a good example, is a good subject area that allows students to express themselves. And almost everything, geography, history, mathematics, is art by itself. When you take a look at the numbers and what the numbers will do in the world, you're looking at Fibonacci series, you can see how petals are formed, and you can turn it to real life and show students basically interesting films and projects that other people are doing. So you start to consider their social and their emotional needs as you continue to develop your online learning and provide more opportunities for your students to share and reflect and so on and so forth. So ask yourself some questions. What are some creative ways that your students have expressed themselves, maybe through online learning? Some ways in which they've done it. Maybe they've created a play online. Maybe they create a puppet instead of them, so they're able to talk. Ask yourself questions like, how are you personally addressing your own social emotional needs? How are you doing it? And then relate it to the students. Because how are you making yourself available to students through online learning? How are you doing that? And somehow you have to pay attention to the fact that all of this becomes that sense of why you became an educator to begin with. See, you have to test yourself, because is your teaching solid? Don't take for granted that students are learning. Give yourself a regular checkup. Great teachers are always learning all the time. They learn about their pupils, they learn about their classroom, they make it better. And great teachers always become great and better educators. I'm a teacher, and I'm not usually happy with the classes that I conduct occasionally, and I want to improve myself. That's why I have a 6-day program, and every day I improve because I know what the needs of my student base, whether or not they are 100 people or 250 people, which is the last long time ago. I had a master trainer certification program, and that was the largest number of people I ever had. So we can, as teachers, become better educators when we cater to the needs of the students, and that will evolve and that will become clearer as the days pass. I can usually tell a great teacher with just one question. What is the next thing you want to do in your classroom? And the great ones will immediately talk about the lessons that didn't work. They'll share their students' struggles. They'll reveal their weaknesses as a teacher. And by listening to them, you might be tempted to think that they are an ineffective teacher, but you'd be wrong. See, ineffective teachers are some of the most self-confident ones you'll ever meet. They have few things they'll change. So they languish in this mediocrity, which continues and continues throughout their existence. So apart from a teacher who learns and has 20 years experience, you'll find that that teacher that languishes in mediocrity and doesn't change has 1 year experience 20 times. And it doesn't help the students any. And every year when they meet new students, they're going to have the same impact or less of an impact on those students. Effective teachers are always improving. So they're always setting their sights on new goals. They're always leveling up and trying new things all the time. So what if it fails? Doesn't matter. One more thing that you learn. So here are a few things you can do to become a better educator. If you're a teacher listening in, if you were a freelance coach listening in, because you're a teacher, you're an educator as well. If you are an online person teaching, or you're a teacher per se, and some of you have had COVID restrictions lifted in your countries, and that's good for you. But whatever the case, you are conveying information to people, or in some cases, you are a guru. And the root word for guru means gu is darkness and ru is light. So you are the one that takes a student from darkness, not knowing, to the light, which is knowing. And so therefore you start to grow. So what are the ways to become a better educator and teacher? Take time to reflect, journal, keep a journal, keep notes, write down areas of weakness that you have. Be honest with yourself. That journal is not going to end up in public view, so don't worry about it. Just write down, brainstorm ways that you can improve. Good practices become best practices when you have reflection. Ask your students. That's the second thing. Ask your students. There's a great teacher named Dean Sharesky, and he always asks his students to give him feedback on each assignment. And you can get student feedback at any point in the year. Capture all feedback in the journal where you reflect. And this guy, Dean, well, what he does is he learns a great deal from this self-assessment, even if it's more and more questions that he has. And each time he puts it forward, he gets the feedback, and that feedback helps him to improve. Look at your results. That's the other thing. Let me try that. That was Tibetan, for those of you who understood, which meant time for water. And we'll come back to English in 1 second. Administrators of schools do not like surprises. Good teachers don't like them either. So when your class average drops rapidly, even if it's in an online training academy or school, you should be figuring out why. Ask questions. Look at what you did, not what your students did, what you did, and figure out what students don't know and why they don't know. And if a child doesn't learn, it's not the child's fault, it's yours. You did not communicate clearly. So always remember this one rule of communication as a teacher. The meaning of your communication is the response that you get. And if the response is one of confusion, then you have conveyed that meaning with your words. So change the way you speak to use different words. Don't repeat the same sentences over and over again. And that's a big mistake. Even in relationships, you want to do that as well. Know who you want to be as a teacher. Great teachers make a to-be list before making a to-do list. You have to examine your values, examine your behavior. How do you line up your values and your behavior? Is your behavior in line with your values, congruent, or are they different? Do what I say, don't do what I do. That's not going to make a good teacher in the end. So what can you do to improve? Ask yourself these questions and you will become a better teacher, whether it's online or in a classroom as well at the same time. You have to also know who you don't want to be. Not just who you want to be, but who you don't want to be. You can reboot any day you choose. Most teachers have a bad day sometimes, even I have bad days sometimes. And great teachers never make bad days a habit. Yelling, say for instance, losing your temper, say for instance, a lesson plan that maybe failed for that particular batch of students, disciplinary type problems, or it's your classroom. It's your stage. If you're teaching from a stage, it's your stage. It's your determination to act that will make it better. The responsibility for the emotional feel of your class or your group or your student base or whoever it is you are talking to is all you. You decide the emotional nature of which way that lesson goes, because your job is to know when you're not measuring up and then take action to become better. This is part of charisma enhancement. This is part of how you get to convey by charisma knowledge that you find students need to have. So seek answers. Don't find fault. People who find faults really get nowhere. And they come from a different kind of thinking, a cognitive, um, uh, cognitively ineffective way of looking at the world. You can take action. You can improve your class. I once had a class one year that became pretty chatty when I was a teacher in 1981, 82, and they would not quieten down. I told them that we'd reboot tomorrow with a new seating chart, and when I did that, they started to change. They decided which way they wanted to do, but they were not very happy about their new seats at first. And I reminded them that they were there to learn, and I'd be happy with learning, than have students happy with me. So with a new seating chart, we picked up the pace, and in the end, we were all happier because we were all making progress, and we made great strides. And students understood that I would take them from their comfortableness and move them into areas of discomfort if we couldn't progress. And so the whole class worked in unison to make sure that that whole thing progressed. I carried that forward in my programs and seminars, my 3-day programs, 4-day programs, 7-day programs, and it became better and better and better. But here's the thing, it became more fun as we started to change all of this as well. Choose to change, because there are many teachers out there that talk about goals. Some teachers have said things like goals should not be inside your comfort zone, but in your discomfort zone. And they also mentioned that staying out of the delusional zone at the same time. If you want a definition for delusional, just look at the presidential election that's going on right now. Greatness lies outside your comfort zone, but you're delusional if you think that you have a perfect classroom. Yours is not. Mine is not. But the risk is usually that we shoot so high, and the problem is that most teachers don't aim to change anything at all. So you either don't achieve it because the aim is too high, or you don't try to change it because you think you're perfect. And so therefore everybody loses in the end, including you, not just your class. So face your fears. That's the most important thing. I love what one teacher who I read a lot about, John Smith, he said, as teachers we have to not be fearful of what could happen, but focus on this idea that will become. We have to be, let me repeat that again. We have to not be fearful of what could happen, but focus on what this idea that we're thinking about, or this collective is thinking about, could become. This was a teacher, if you don't know who he is, John Smith wrote a lot of books, and he also became one of the teachers of the year in the United States, super teacher, if you will. And it was John Smith who helped autistic children go out there and publish, I think, more than 60, 80 books so far. And that's amazing for them. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, and I used to say it a long time ago as well, the word fear, F-E-A-R, stands for false evidence appearing real. We fear change. We fear trying new things, but we shouldn't. Instead, we should fear complacency. We should fear a mindset that refuses to change. Because when we refuse to change, we refuse to learn. We give up our role as a lead learner when we refuse to change. The kids in our classroom or the adults in our classroom are fearful every day because they're asked to learn every day. And they have to see us learning as well. So that's where, as a teacher, you continue to learn. You need to grow. Don't rot. Some teachers get tired. They think that it's easier to stay the same than to change. So if you think you can stay the same, well, that's a lie. That's part of the delusion. You can't. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You can't stay the same. It isn't possible. Nature abhors a vacuum. So I know in the south of the United States, there's a saying that says, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you rot. So don't rot, grow. Growth is a slow and steady thing. So when you learn and apply a little bit of consistently, over time, everything you learn, then you look back and you begin to realize what a big difference it has made to learn that little bit more and that little bit more until mastery is complete, until you have unconscious competence of your subject and you start to become that person that every student wants to look up to because you know your stuff. You become a better educator every day. And when you do, it means that you'll be an incredible teacher, after a pretty short period of time. All that growth, guys, adds up. But one thing is sure. To not grow is to die slowly. So level up a little bit every day, and your students will be glad you did. Both the adults and both the students as well. Now, somebody asked me a question here. Oh, hey, Lucia. Yes, everyone is asking me questions. Where are we here? In today's education, Chris Vacher says, in today's education system, there is a rigid structure of the course given to the professor that causes a disincentive to the effective teacher to use his or her creativity. Lucia, good morning from Brazil. Lucia, if you're tuning in right now, I told everybody that tomorrow at 9 p.m. Singapore time, 9 a.m. New York time, 4 p.m. Bulgarian time. You know what? Things may have changed. The clock, did it move forward yet? Somebody tell me, I'm not sure. May have already. But I told them that we're going to be talking about the laws of teaching. And they'll be very excited to learn about suggestology, suggestopedia as well. Not tomorrow, sorry, Friday. So it'll be a lot of fun. Sri Kumar, nice to hear from you as well. You are from Riyadh. Sawasdi from Thailand. Ting Maliwan. Wow, it's almost like the words of a song. Ting Maliwan. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ting Maliwan. So anyway, yeah, that's it. Oh, by the way, if you want to join me and you're a teacher and you would like to have something that you would like to say, this is the link that will appear in your Facebook, or if you're listening on YouTube, it will appear on YouTube. So just click on that and you'll be able to come online and I'll be able to add you on if you want to add to what I'm saying. Yes, Lucia, I'm looking forward to talking with you again and listening this time. I promise to stay silent and you will teach because you have a lot of wisdom to share and a lot of people are looking forward to seeing you as well, just to let you know. So if you have any other questions for me tonight, it's 9:30, and just to give you an idea, tonight is going to be we're going to run the program till 10 o'clock or 10:30 at the latest, because tomorrow morning I have to be up at 6 a.m. to go pick up a fellow who is changing my life. I'm gonna leave the house at 6:30, so pick him up at 7, have a little bit of breakfast somewhere in Singapore, one of the hawker centers, and come back here and work. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really, really looking forward to this man helping me with a lot of things. And then I will be broadcasting from my studio, which is over there, and it becomes live. So far, this is my study area. It's not my studio. And works so far, but not good enough. And so that's where I'll be doing a lot of work, which means that I'm now doubly, as it is, I am already insulated from sound and a lot of people, except for the window. And the window doesn't allow a lot of sound in, but you can hear the water and you can hear the air conditioning. So in that room, it's the most silent room in this house. So I won't be able to hear what's happening in the rest of the house. So it'll be very interesting as well. So if you have any questions, please ask me here, either on Facebook or ask me in person. One question that somebody asked me, what about becoming a spiritual teacher? Is that the same as the teacher you're talking about? I'm talking about every teacher, every educator, whether or not you're in elementary school or you are in high school. They're known as primary school and secondary school in Asia, or pre-university or even university teachers, or community college, polytechnics teachers, or freelance trainers, teachers. Even as a trainer, you're a teacher. You're not really a trainer because when you say trainer, you're thinking animals, an animal trainer. So you're actually a teacher, an educator, even at that level. And now, if you want to be a spiritual teacher, well, our teaching paradigms, have been so messed up for so long that I think it's really important to explain maybe what a spiritual teacher is. Because many people are seeking spiritual guidance and spiritual teachers, but they don't really know what to look for or what to do when they find one. And they're acting like beggars looking for illuminated coins, to drop from the hands of a teacher and give it to them, and they hold it and cling on to it and expect their life to change because of that amulet. And certainly you have a lot of people who, I would term not just teachers, but spiritual counselors that are doing this. You may become really excited thinking that you're going to get a lot of value, and the ego mind is always concerned about getting something: knowledge, experience, things, amulets and such, like good luck items, identities. Your name from now on shall be Guru, 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 blah, 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 whatever, and hard to identify. Hindu names usually. Or sometimes it can create a strange scenario where you are actually getting further from the truth. So let's talk about what a spiritual teacher is. Your spiritual teacher doesn't have your answers. Just in case, of this patriarchy that have been ingrained in you, the idea of robed old dudes with beards, being the only spiritual teachers around. Let's knock that idea right out of your head. I'm connected with wonderfully powerful women who are growing into the space of a spiritual teacher. They are freaking amazing and beautiful inside and out. They have just as valuable spiritual wisdom to share with you as the male spiritual teachers. End of story. But whether a spiritual teacher is a man or woman, that person doesn't have your answers. Sorry. This may be disappointing. The more embodied awareness a teacher has, the less likely the teacher will actually presume or presuppose to have anything at all. You see, the spiritual teacher understands that this whole process of spiritual awakening is not a recovery, it's an uncovering, an uncovery, if you call it, a pulling away of external ego, issues and pain and all of that baggage from the past. It's a recovery of the you that's buried beneath all of that social suppression, that emotional, intellectual, physical contriving lies and matrices that we are pulling away from normally, naturally, as you get older. It's the recovery of you. That's what the spiritual teacher does. The path that a spiritual teacher points you towards is the one that's leading you back to you. So how does that affect encouragement or advice or the occasional hug? A spiritual teacher will have plenty of spiritual advice. It's never enforced on you, although it can be empathetically or forcefully said. A spiritual teacher may also incredibly upset you. He or she will know how to ignite issues in you so that you can see them eventually. You may not understand the process or why you're pissed at the teacher, but in time, as you work with your spiritual teacher, you will understand that the teacher is helping you to heal. And that said, the spiritual teacher is not controlling you or making you do stuff out of fear, guilt, or shame. Any so-called teacher who does all of that is not a teacher at all. Some sort of sadomasochist that you should avoid. Because above all, a spiritual teacher offers a lot of encouragement, love, an occasional hug, and a pat on the back. But sometimes a pat on the back and a kick in the butt are just few vertebrae removed. And the teacher will know when to do that. So whatever support you need at that time, he or she might know that you are working through a lot of stuff and you have to do the work on this path. He cannot do your work for you, just like a teacher cannot do your homework for you. Your parents cannot do your homework for you. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, you don't grow. It just doesn't happen like that. They can't remove your karma. One or two very special beings have an ability to rework it, because it involves a network of a lot of people as well, and also a little bit of sight. You have to have an ability to be able to see beyond infrared and ultraviolet, or to hear beyond infrasounds or ultrasounds that you have to also pay attention to as well. But with a spiritual teacher, you may find that it is all a little bit easier to bear, and that you find a lot of compassion emanating from that person. Or you will feel, and you don't know why, you're being drawn back to this person all the time, being drawn back, and you don't know why. Because there are lessons that they can teach you. It just is the way. It's a little bit hard to explain. Maybe we'll talk about the levels of spiritual teachers. Although I don't like breaking things into levels, because ultimately, the further on the spiritual path you walk, the more things start to blend into one. There are no levels. You just simply become one. However, given all the spiritual teachers that are out there right now, I see a lot of different levels and varieties that maybe I can use very broad strokes to express without stepping on people's toes. There are intellectual teachers. The intellectual teacher is like a lot of Buddhist teachers. They really give you a lot for your mind to work in developing a conceptual framework around spirituality. Then there are the psychic teachers. They can help you get in touch with past lives, empathetic abilities, empath level, the astral plane, angels, spirit guides, and all sorts of energy forms. Then there are the heart teachers. These are teachers that really teach from the heart. They can show up in just about any spiritual or religious tradition. You may actually start to notice that when you are around them, your heart just opens up on its own. You're happy for no reason and you don't know why. And then there are the body teachers, Hatha yoga, and Western Tantra teachers. are great examples of body teachers. They really understand the body and the spirit connection. And sometimes just getting a little hug from a body teacher can be a very powerful thing, because how they teach best sometimes is often through their bodies and through their touch. Some of you have had a chance to work with me at close proximity and levels will recognize that I do hug, and there's a reason why I do that, and it's because I'm giving you what it is that comes from not me, something beyond me, and I'm there to help. So obviously there's a plenty of overlaps between all these teachers, and boundaries are illusionary anyway, but you'll start to see where people are strongest and what type of teacher will help you in any stage of your life. So if you've already figured out a lot of intellectual truths on the spiritual path, then maybe having an intellectual spiritual teacher will not be particularly useful. So hopefully, however, you're clear in your mind and you haven't simply created a lot of seemingly spiritual concepts. And sometimes these spiritual concepts hide the ego. And this happens all too often, in which case you will need an intellectual spiritual teacher, and we'll have to go through a process of tearing down the old concepts and bring in the new concepts that you have adopted. So finally, you have to understand that many people offer multiple aspects, and few are powerful, intellectual, heart, body, and psychic or subtle energy spiritual teachers. Very few. I can name them for you. People that I do listen to once in a while and say, wow, how cool. Thank you for making that clear for everybody, and everybody needs to learn. But I also know for a fact when I look at the audience, I go, less than 10% are going to take it in and start to do something about it. The rest of them are looking for amulets and gifts and spiritual power coming from someone else. So finding spiritual teachers like this is probably more of a personal preference than a necessity. And you shouldn't want to wait, to find the perfect spiritual teacher before getting started on your spiritual task or your spiritual work, whatever that work is. Start now. So you will, however, start to evolve, and you won't stay the same. So evolving through multiple spiritual teachers may be what you have to go to, because making a commitment to the spiritual path, that is the key. That path, however, it isn't necessarily a commitment to one person, just a path, and you will have many teachers come your way. The only person you are truly committing to is you, your divine self. That's why I keep saying to people, I don't want to be your guru, but I will teach you how to become your own guru. So as such, you may work with different spiritual teachers as you grow and evolve. I may throw you to somebody else because, they can probably spend all that time and be with you to break through some of the molds, and then come back and I'll teach you a little bit more. One teacher will help you with your heart. The next one may help you understand your mind. And this isn't done willy-nilly. It's letting go of a spiritual teacher should be done with as much grace and reverence as stepping into that space. So honor the person who has shared so deeply with you, whatever it is they have, and let them know that if you are concluding your work with this person, let them know that too. And to do so keeps the space between you clean, and it helps you to set appropriate boundaries also at the same time. But oddly enough, if you don't, well, some spiritual teachers may still try to contact you or interact in some way as spiritual teachers, even though you're no longer having regular daily or weekly or monthly meetings. So lastly, more importantly, committing to one spiritual teacher isn't a bad thing. I want to be clear that you aren't looking to find the latest and greatest flavor of the month with your spiritual teacher. Such things can actually become very intense. And many people with commitment issues, well, they need to stay dedicated to the teacher and teaching that you've chosen. If you run away, you will not heal the issues that need to be confronted. And staying put in that discipline, whether it's right or wrong, don't pay attention to that. Trust that the universe has put you where you need to be. And at that point, you will start to grow. So at that point, somebody says, well, what about finding more? I've evolved to a certain stage. How about if I find more evolved or advanced spiritual teachers? Western society, it's a good idea, Western civilization, as Gandhi said. But Western society often operates on the assumption that bigger is better. So I want to emphasize one thing, and that is that you don't need the most powerful spiritual master in the world to teach you. You simply need the person who meets you best where you are now. I know that can't really be measured or evaluated in a solid way, but that's just another reason why listening to your inner self, listening to your inner voice, your inner knowing, when choosing a spiritual teacher, that is so important, to listen to your intuitive voice. What does it tell you? What does your heart tell you? See, you can get a sense for how powerful a spiritual teacher is the clearer you are about yourself. Because initially you probably will think certain people are more powerful, than they actually are, because of something they did, something they said, or what other people have said about them. In such an instance, maybe the power you see is how much you have to learn from them. When you complete those lessons, the scales start to fall off from your eyes, and you see more, and about where they are in their own growth. You recognize that your spiritual teacher is a human being on the same path as you are. They may be a little bit more advanced. They may be a little bit more taller. They may be able to see a little bit further than you. But a spiritual teacher is still a person, a human being after all. And this person is growing like you are growing and evolving in their own divinity, in their own divine way, in their own divine timing. So levels of spiritual awareness among spiritual teachers, if we need to have one, spiritual level 1, the teacher. He knows the path because he or she learned it from a teacher or a book. This individual, the teacher, the spiritual teacher, has filed away a lot of knowledge and is now repeating it verbatim. This pretty much defines 90% of the spiritual teachers that are out there. They don't create anything new. They don't distill anything that comes new and be able to create a new format, a new way of seeing the world. They just rehash what somebody else has taught them. For example, someone taught them that the Bible has this and this and that principle, and now they're repeating that, spreading the good word. There's nothing wrong with this, just to make it clear. And it can help you to expand your spiritual understanding in many ways. But in so many other ways, this type of spiritual teacher is a defender, a preserver of their faith. They ensure that knowledge is passed on as they learn it. Meditation teachers, yoga teachers, ministers, rabbis, imams, a lot of these people can be what we would call level 1 teachers. So what is a level 2 teacher, spiritual teacher? He knows the path because he or she has experienced some of it. This spiritual teacher has maybe experienced a few profound moments on their own. So they're sharing the spiritual tools that has helped them achieve all these experiences, to help other people find the same experiences in their lives. And so therefore, they'll, instead of other people falling into the same holes, repeating the same mistakes, they provide clarity for people who are seeking to not repeat those same mistakes as well. So that individual, that spiritual level teacher the spiritual teacher level 2, This individual is likely to be interested in rituals, maybe spiritual retreats, somatic experiences, which means soma has to do with the body, and other spiritual activities that allow the person to engage with spirituality in a very experiential way. So this type of spiritual teacher is very likely to focus on the spiritual tool or path that has helped them to experience their original profound moment. It would be like a yoga teacher, who had an amazing heart opening during a yoga lesson once, and now they teach yoga to others in hopes of helping the students or inspiring the students to experience the same kind or same type of opening. So that's how you recognize the spiritual teacher level 2. How about spiritual teacher level 3? Well, this person actively embodies the spiritual path. In embodying the spiritual path or the spiritual awareness, this teacher is conscious on multiple levels, in soul, mind, heart, and body, although probably not completely at peace on all of them, but conscious nonetheless. The body consciousness is where this teacher is likely to be least open, maybe. However, this spiritual teacher actively walks their talk, and they can help you, and they can help others move through inner barriers that earlier level teachers cannot do. They have an insight into your mind. Don't know how. If you ask them to teach you, they wouldn't know how. They just can. Then there's a variety of embodied spiritual teachers. However, there are many depths of spiritual realization you have to pay attention to in the heart, in the body, in the mind, and in the soul. And so this makes the level 3 spiritual teachers very unique and different from one another and from others out there. This teacher, just to give you an idea, can actually use many different types of spiritual tools because they sense what spiritual tools work best to reveal the truth for each particular student. And so they work at that level, and if they don't have the tools, they somehow show up. Finally, the spiritual teacher level 4. They allow the presence to do the teaching. Some people may call it, what's the word? Wow, around this time the word escapes me. Mediums doing what they're doing. Sometimes it's utter rubbish, and it's easy to tell which one is a real medium and which one is not. Another lesson, another day, I'll talk about how to recognize a real medium from one who's just using higher consciousness. The level 4 spiritual teacher does the least and the most compared to the other 3 levels we talked about. He or she actually allows presence, oneness, the one, to do the teaching in the work that they share. And most spiritual tools are otherwise irrelevant for them. And while they can use spiritual tools and direct others to use them with a clarity about what the tools can and cannot do, they understand that the divine presence is the ultimate teacher and the ultimate teaching. They understand how this presence of divinity ignites energetic movements towards spiritual truth and freedom. And this allows this teacher, or this kind of teacher, to offer profound levels of connection, healing, growth for their students. Sometimes, depending on who they pick, he or she might even, if you are ready, introduce you to the one. And then at that point, you begin to realize that, I am so sorry, little bug. Hope you grow into a better existence. Or not. Anyway, so A spiritual master is a very rare find.
It's 10 o'clock.
They might sound like this guy too, so we don't know. But either way, the knowledge is not the person. The knowledge is beyond that, and the teachings are beyond the person, and the energy that you feel is beyond them. So what about the spiritual master? The spiritual master radiates energy when he or she enters the room. The room shifts. You are no longer on earth. You are in a different dimensional space. The presence of the master can naturally call out darkness in others. It just comes forward. And the spiritual master offers a very powerful doorway to spiritual freedom to all who come into their lives. This is a very powerful person. And this type of person is one who you only seek when only the spiritual path matters to you, that you are no longer on the other path of accumulation and disillusionment and all of that. So by the time you are a teacher at the third level, that should be your mindset. But with the master, well, you won't be the same just by being in the same room. Spiritual masters don't have to teach. Many of them will be at peace, being in the here and the now, and they don't have any motivation to teach. So as such, the master, the spiritual master, is a very rare find. I'll talk more about it on a different day, and then you'll have an idea. Now, there are so many people out there, false spiritual teachers. It's easy to recognize them once you get an idea. Cult leaders as well. It's unfortunate, but a lot of false teachers do exist in the world. And they use their authority to get things from other people, whether it's sex or money or something else, you know. Some false teachers create communities and they become cult leaders. Well, I don't see these people as numerous. There's not a lot of them. They can be dangerous for your spiritual growth. And so it is important to simply know that they exist. And if you want a hard way, yeah, go ahead, be part of that. If you want the easy way, avoid them. So they thrive. These cult leaders and spiritual teachers, they thrive off the idea of controlling others. And they often tell their followers that they are their doorway to the divine, to enlightenment or awakening or whatever else they come up with. But this is not true. All of your wisdom is within you, people, and you are always in the arms of God. The master is no more or no less than you. Anyone so-called spiritual teacher who claims that you are not good enough because as you are, or that you aren't able to access the divine on your own, that should raise a lot of red flags already. So pay attention to that. You can, because the teachers will lead you somewhere along the way. So sometimes a spiritual ally on the path is very useful, because a spiritual teacher should be seen as a friend and not okay, maybe not as a friend, maybe as an ally, the first word I use. Ally, not really a friend. Because many people confuse this space by trying to make the teacher their friend. It doesn't work well. The spiritual teacher can only be considered a friend in the highest regard because he or she is helping you to find the deepest and purest truth within yourself. But unlike the typical friend, a spiritual teacher may sometimes push you, thrust you into difficult parts of yourself so that you face your darkness. A spiritual teacher may say things that upset you. There is no ego or, mollycoddling people along the way from spiritual teachers. Especially the more advanced they are, the more harsh they seem. So you have to understand that, because we know that you won't want to waste one more second of being trapped. If you're truly understood that that spiritual freedom that you seek, when you truly understand what that is and what you are missing, being trapped in all of your pain and all of your matrix of lies and everything that has always been around you as truisms from different people. If you want to break free of all of that, you have to destroy illusion and cut away all the lies. It's all part of helping you come into your true life and life from a space of deep love and of acceptance and peace. In that way, the spiritual teacher is the best friend you'll ever have. So many, many, many amazing spiritual teachers exist in the world, people. In no age have so many teachers been so readily available. And now with Google and all of that, in centuries past, you had one priest or a local rabbi or imam or something from somewhere else, and it wasn't in your town. You always go to another person's city or village or town, and the internet has changed all of that. So, hey, we have a lot to thank the internet for and for Google as well. So obviously, you and I, what am I to you? I'm a friend. I'm just your best ally that you can have to take you on a path that you need to go. When I begin my master trainer certification, I teach you not only at the conscious level, but I'm teaching you at the subconscious and the superconscious levels. Now, if you understand that, then you know that a lot of the lessons you learn from me, a lot of the lessons you learn from me, you somehow remember. Yeah? So if you have any questions for me, now is a good time to ask me these questions. I'm looking for, no, Chris Vacha says, what is happening in undeveloped countries where online teaching is not feasible? I would suggest that the administration should combine 2 grade levels into one. Good suggestion. Edward says, a teacher can only guide you. They cannot give you a flat out answer. That is true. You have to find the answers. They can't tell you this is the answer. There are many answers, depending on how you see things. Chris Vacha says, I question the word spirituality since the spirituality is not uniform and is highly biased in the religiosity, is that a word? Of the teacher. The spirituality of today can cause division rather than unity. Yes, as do views like that as well. Can do that as well. See, it's all about opinion, about what you feel and what you think and so on and so forth. So we want to go past all of this and just connect. Know that you have it all within you. It's just that you don't trust the answers that come to your mind at that point. So it becomes a little bit more difficult. Somebody asked a question about what are the qualifications for becoming a teacher. 1, you should be breathing. That's it. You don't need any other qualifications. If there are people that tell you that you do need, I mean, yes, you need for teaching in schools and all of that. I'm talking about spiritual teaching, or if you're teaching something of that level. But always remember, and this is something I tell my master trainers from my Master Trainer Institute graduates, when you attach the word master trainer after your name, it's a double-edged sword. You're telling people who they're facing. Now you have to show them who you're facing. And they're going to decide, not you, they are going to decide if you are a master trainer or not. So I urge you to take that qualification from me and say MTI graduate, and don't use the word master trainer so much. Say teacher, or whatever the case might be. And that humility may well serve you. And at some point during the program, if it's a one-day program, make sure you let them know before the end of the day and they begin to understand that you are, and you do that by association. There are many paths. to becoming advanced as a teacher, to become incredibly charismatic, to become so energetic that you touch everybody in the room, but not to the point where you just want them to like you. That doesn't do anything. But in a point where you are able to get into everybody's mind, let's say there's 50 or 100 people or one, to be able to get into their mind, and it's the most uncomfortable thing, because you get to see the fear, you get to see the pain, you get to see the twistedness, you get to see what they've kept from the rest of the world, you get to see the lies. And so when you turn it on, and your ability to become that teacher, at some point what's going to happen is you're going to see and hear and feel things you don't want to feel and see and hear. But if you're up there, not to show off, but you're up there because you truly care about people and you want to help them, whether it's online or up there or wherever, then this becomes your compassion. This becomes the part of you that wants to give selflessly, asking for nothing in return. There are many, many paths to becoming a spiritual teacher. Or even as a teacher, you realize that you are a healer at the same time. And there are many types of healers and teachers and all of them operating in the levels that I told you: ability and learning and operations and so on and so forth. And again, what is a spiritual teacher? Well, for some people, you're here to teach, but it's important to do a lot of inner work. Inner work is about peeling away layers of ego so that you are truly clear on who you are and what your purpose is here on earth. And if you want to understand what it means, is for you to be able to find out what your gifts are, and then to be able to release that to the world. That's your purpose, is to find out what your purpose is, and to be in complete alignment with it, and not to doubt. See, we doubt a lot. Once we find the answers for what our purpose is, we doubt. And actually, many people who think they're teachers or healers are really just trying to teach or heal themselves, when you think about it. I think there's an adage out there that says if you want to retain 90% of the information that you read and hear and learn, teach it. Yes and no. You teach it because it's mastery of the subject, but mastery at a head level, not mastery at a total mind, body, spirit level. So other people try to use teaching and healing as identities, as ways to get social approval of one kind, social validation from people. I'm a healer, I'm a coach, I'm a hoo-ha-ha-ha-ha, and it legitimizes their existence. Some just like feeling special, and so they see a spiritual teacher as a special person. And being a spiritual teacher is anything but special. It's about making the darkness your work, because nobody needs a light in the middle of a day, when the sun upside, because much of the work that you do will only be known by you and the person that you're with. You are dealing with your darkness, and now you're helping alleviate the darkness and bring light into the person in front of you. So you damn well face your demons, because there are many trees in the forest. You have to understand, and all of them are sacred. You don't have to be like who's that guy? When I need to sleep, I listen to him. Eckhart Tolle. I now lose a lot of Eckhart Tolle fans, but if you ever have trouble sleeping at night, just listen, and within 5 minutes, guaranteed you'll fall asleep. Or even read Rumi, or you can You can name some other teacher that you have. It's you don't have to be like them. It's impossible to be like them. You're not them. You're you. You're individual. As different on the planet. Imagine 7 billion people, and all of them as separate identities because of the simple thing called a fingerprint. So your DNA print is also different. So can you imagine your energy print, imprint on the world is also unique, and so you have to understand that you are special. You are different. And you're going to have a certain way of sharing, a certain way of teaching, a certain way of speaking, a certain way of offering, to your spiritual students, all that is your own. So it's like different trees in the forest. That's what I said in the beginning. What they offer to the forest and environment around them can be extremely different from tree to tree. The great redwood trees, for instance, in California, provide enormous shelter to many of the human beings around the world with huge, stature, great boughs of leaves and everything else. It also holds a great piece of the earth with its roots, and stabilizes the environment around it. So it's solid. The peach tree doesn't do these things. My brother, outside his house, just on the porch, has a peach tree, which from year to year yields different fruits and so on and so forth. Instead, this peach tree, when you look at it, it nourishes people and animals with the sweet fruits that it spends all spring and summer growing. But yet both are very important. Not one is more important than the other. Both have amazing things to offer to the world, as do teachers. So consider what would happen if the peach tree suddenly decided that it wanted to be a redwood, or the redwood thought that it should be the peach tree. The peach tree would spurn its fruit and struggle and strive to grow taller and hyperextend its roots to stretch out further. And meanwhile, the great redwood would twist and bend and slouch to try and stand the level of the peach tree, and to toil endlessly to produce edible fruit. But none would taste right. And all in the forest would wonder why these two beautiful trees were so utterly confused that they tried to become like each other. Be yourself. There are many types of development as spiritual teachers, and numbers of ways in which you can develop as a spiritual teacher. For example, I've seen totally intuitive developments. It's like when you are remembering or how to work as a spiritual teacher, then rather than learning how to do it, you're just remembering, and you're not sure where it comes from, but it comes. Or you're learning a set path, like I said before, with all the different levels. This is the typical journey of everybody, where people learn an established religion or a spiritual path, or they meet criteria to work as a spiritual teacher under that tradition or somebody else's tradition or somebody else's school, and so on and so forth. Or you are placed in the role of a teacher by others. You haven't been training or realizing that you want a path of a spiritual teacher, but then other people start asking you to lead their meditation groups, to give talks, to give pep speeches in front of schools and such like. And soon you grow into that role, and you're not sure how it started at some point. So for most people, learning from different traditions is necessary, because few people do it entirely by intuition and remembrance. Very special few will do that. And again, you have to guard against delusional thinking and so on. And how do you tell what is real from what is unreal? You see, there are a lot of people out there who are extremely intuitive about your spiritual teacher development, and you will be able to pick up things very quickly and very easily. But most people will have to learn how to sift through all of this intellectual knowledge that they receive, and through trial and error, figure out what works for them and what doesn't work for them, as they develop a stronger and stronger inner knowing. So the intuitives also need to do a lot of inner work like everybody else. There is so much forgotten stuff in the unconscious ego, the unconscious memory of our what do we say, tribal beginnings. Our genetic DNA contains a lot of information as well. And then if you understand how gnosis works, Gnosis, then you begin to understand that all the knowledge in the world is contained in the very simple grain of sand that you hold in your hand. And when you start to understand the difference between intuition and ego, you begin to grow. It'll become part of your natural gifts. Any other questions? Ding Maliwan says, a lion and a deer went to the town together to get some drink. I hear a joke here. Bartender, what would you like to drink? Deer says, a bottle of beer, please. Bartender says, how about you, lion? Deer, if he's hungry, I cannot be here with him. What? I think I missed something. Okay. Hey, Ashok, how are you? Let's go to Chris. With the advancement of the internet, all the TV evangelists seem to have lost their keeping us dependent on them, and we had no way to challenge their teachings. Thanks to the World Wide Web, social media, which can make them go viral. Bless them. Everybody has a role to play. Who are you? Who am I to stop them? They're doing work. They're doing good work. But we might say not so good or bad or whatever. Compared to what? Compared to what, kiddo? You're not kiddo. You're 70 years old. You have any questions for me? Or if you'd like to join this broadcast. Let me give you, just hit on that link and I'll be able to bring you on board and then we can chat. Otherwise, it's 10:22, in about 5 minutes, we will end this session and I will go to bed early tonight. It'll be fun tomorrow. Looking forward to learning. All right, I'm going to assume that there's nothing else. We have been exploring, we started with education today. We talked about educators and teachers. If you want to hear what we talked about in the beginning, just listen to this broadcast again. Take a lot of notes, if you will. This will teach you about many things. You could even turn it into a course if you want. The joy of having knowledge and sharing that knowledge is the greatest gift in the world. You talk about unconditional giving. That's what you can give. You don't have to charge people money. You can suggest an amount, and if they cannot, it's okay. They don't have to. But the ones who do, using the honor system, should sustain you and you'll be able to live well, if not adequately, and then you'll be a better person as well. So teaching is a noble profession. You get into it not expecting it to be easy, because every year, if you're in schools, every year you begin a love story over and over again, every year, annually, with 30 new souls that come in your classroom, and you look after them, and you are responsible for all the thoughts and all the words that come out of your mouth and all the thoughts they begin to think, and you direct them and you direct their growth. But understand something, the words that you speak to those children 20 years from now will echo in their heads. For parents, that's a warning for you too. Be careful what you say, because your grown-up children who are in their 40s and their 50s remember it like it was yesterday. And it determines their mental health and their emotional health. So if you can, and if you have fucked up in the past, forgive yourself because you were not taught, ignorant, if you will, which is not a bad thing, admitting it and then changing it. Tell them now. If you haven't told your children how much you love them and you stopped doing it because they got older, tell them now. It's not too late. It's too late only when they die or you die in the process. So might as well change everything that you don't like. Do it now. And if you haven't said to your man or your woman, I say that carefully because you may not be married to this person, how much you love them, because words are empty. I love you, bye-bye, at the end of the sentence. Sometimes it's pure shit, depending on what you do and you say the rest of the time. So make all of your communication loving communication. If you're with your partner, put away your video games. I know a woman who, when she sits in front of me, plays video games. But she complains to me about her children. I said, what's the complaint? She said, whenever I'm home with them, they're always playing video games. I said, really? Guess where they learned it from? Uh-huh. And I hope that makes a difference sometimes. So if you're going for coffee with a friend or a significant other, sit and imbibe them, not just the coffee. You take time to drink your coffee, to savor that flavor and the warmth. When have you taken the time to savor the love of a friendship? It doesn't have to be a lover. It doesn't have to be a husband or wife. It can be somebody else's husband or wife. Makes no difference. Or your child even. And savor the human being that's in front of you. Since when do you carry around these phones as if you're a doctor on call? And every ding that comes in is so important to you, it seems like life or death, the other person. And I long for the time when we had to make phone calls and we had to use coins and stick it in some machine that was attached to a wall. And we had never had these on us. But now these things are plastered to our faces. I don't recognize some people without that thing in front of them. And so when they wear masks, I recognize them now because it's the same as when they have the phone in front of them. I don't want to go on. Some people's paths are meant to be hard. Some are meant to be easy. Some are blocked. Some are not. And when I see it all, sometimes I want to help. Other times, I just simply can't. Our next broadcast is on Friday, day after tomorrow, with Lucia Carla Zonig, who is going to be teaching us about Suggestopedia and Suggestology. And uninterrupted, she's going to be teaching us about the laws of learning, of teaching and learning. There will be no other interruptions, and I'll let her speak freely. So it'll be a lot of fun. When the path is blocked in front of us, whether it's a spiritual path or an educational path that we have embarked upon, a path of learning, when the path is blocked and backed up, all you have to do is allow yourself to step away from the path so that you can see more of it. We are each a mountain for the other person to climb. And very often our path is to love is interrupted by a mishap or an accident or a problem or something unexpected that needs attending. We tend to call these unexpected things in life obstacles. And often the thing that comes in the way comes from another person. A stubbornness falls like a tree blocking where we want to go, or a sadness comes like a flash flood to muddy the road between us. Or just as we go to rest in the clearing we have prepared, we are bitten by something hiding in the undergrowth. And this is true also in our daily ways. We have this constant choice to see each other as the stubborn, muddy, biting thing that blocks our way, or to back up and take in the whole person, look at them fully as we would a mountain in its entirety. Dizzy, sometimes when looking up into the majesty of this mountain, of this person in front of us. What do we mean when we say, Namaste? I acknowledge the divinity that is inside you. And after acknowledging that, you pick up your phone and you play video games and you answer each and every message that people send you as if you will die, and you lose the perspective that you are in front of a mountain of miracles. That they would be there forever, you don't know. When we are blocked in our closeness with another person, we have this constant opportunity to raise our eyes and behold each other completely, look at each other, then to kneel and lift this fallen tree or cross this flooded path or pluck and toss the biting thing that gnaws at us. We have the chance to keep climbing, so we might cup the water that runs from each other, so that we might quench our thirst from a mountain stream, knowing that love, like water, comes very softly through the hardest of places. So what can you do tonight before you sleep? Center yourself, people, and bring to mind a person you love, a friend, a partner, or a family member, and focus on the one stubborn thing coming from them right now. Focus on that. Keep that in your mind. And without denying this difficulty, inhale and widen your heart's view. Back up if you can. And see the whole person, stubbornness and all. If it's a son or a daughter, step back. This is the love of your life that came from you. If it's a man or a woman, this man or woman came to you with love and dreams of togetherness. What are you doing? Step back, take a look at it all. That which you call obstacle is love in disguise. Breathe deeply and feel both the difficulty that is theirs, as well as the entirety of their spirits, which causes you to love them and for them to love you. You've been listening to Uncommon Sense and the voice of Dr. Mel Gill. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful Thursday. We'll see you on Friday. Good night, everyone.